What is up, fellas, and welcome to another episode of Rewriting History with me, the Goob. Today, I am going to be talking a little bit about Indiana Jones and mostly about the connection between archaeology and the CIA. I'm sure all of you have seen the Indiana Jones movies, you're familiar with them, and most of you probably at one point thought it was kind of strange, right? They are a bit of a strange idea for a movie. You have the federal government coming to an archaeologist and giving him the task of fighting Nazis and saving the world. Seems kind of out there, but reality is often stranger than fiction, and Indiana Jones is a lot closer to reality than you might think. So that's what we're going to be discussing today. I have zero imagery to be showing today, so feel free to pop me in your pocket, do an audio only, or you can stare at my beautiful face this whole time, but that's what you're going to be looking at if you're watching. So the connections between state secrets and archaeology go all the way back, and I could go all the way back, especially to the Renaissance with the birth of the science, the end of catastrophism, the birth of the New World Order that we see today, and how all of that is very strongly linked to archaeology. You know, I've talked about how all of the most influential people in the past, they all have a strong fixation on the people before them, on their past. So all of this does go all the way back, but I'm not going to go all the way back to that. Although someday I may do an episode on John Dees and Edward Kelly, the origins of 007. They were treasure hunters and archaeologists and double agents and lived very interesting lives. But today I'm going to jump forward to 1919 when Franz Boas wrote a letter. And let me pull up my notes because I have a lot of notes for this episode, so I'm going to try and use them. Franz Boas wrote an open letter to the nation in 1919 where he accused four anthropologists, John W. Fuchs, Sylvanus G. Morley, and George Grant McCurdy, and Alice. There's no vowels in that name. It's just a series of consonants. I'm not even going to try and say it, but Alice something, of spying for the U.S. government during World War I. This action was seen, the action of the letter, by the way, not the action of the spying. This action was seen as a betrayal of the scientific community's trust and led to Boas being censured by the AAA, the American Archaeological Association. So this is going all the way back to 1919, and it doesn't stop there. Laura Thompson was also an anthropologist who worked during World War I, involved in the Office of War Information Bureau of Intelligence, and she analyzed propaganda and psychological warfare. I'm trying to establish like factual connections of intelligence and archaeology, but I'm also going to be covering why archaeologists are the perfect recruitment pool for the CIA. Here's a little peek into that. There you have an anthropologist who's studying propaganda and psychological warfare. There's a reason why anthropologists are specifically and uniquely equipped to do something like that. Clyde Kluckhohn and the OSS. So before the CIA even existed, there was the OSS. And during World War I, Kluckhohn, a prominent anthropologist, worked with the Office of Strategic Services, the precursor to the CIA. And he used his anthropological insights in efforts of serving the intelligence community. Ralph Linton is another World War II working with the intelligence community who was a anthropologist. After that time period, the documentation becomes less public because the CIA itself actually gets created and things get classified, right? It's secret. So there's still plenty of things to point to, but it becomes a little less solid. You get less names involved because now we are dealing with actual classified documents that, you know, are still to this day largely classified. Anthropologists also worked in Project Artichoke and MK Ultra. Like I was saying, they are uniquely positioned to excel at this type of propaganda and psychological warfare. Okay. Stanley Diamond is an anthropologist who wrote a book about the ethical issues of anthropologists and their involvement in intelligence work. So he cites, if you want like specific examples, Stanley Diamond has a book where he cites lots and lots of examples of the CIA and anthropologists working together. Again, this is a problem common enough that books are being written about it. He largely critiques the actions in World War II and the Cold War. You also have Project Camelot, which I know there's an episode of Y-Files that covers Project Camelot pretty well. If any of you know what episode that is, because it's not titled Project Camelot, it's an episode about something else where they cover Project Camelot. If you know that episode, please leave a comment, in the comments and let me know, because I don't know which episode it is, but I'd like to recommend it to you guys because he covers it excellently. And Project Camelot was the government taking anthropologists and using them to completely subvert and control all of South America during the Cold War. So Project Camelot in 1964 was, like I just said, a project where they got a whole bunch of anthropologists and used them in South America in order to manipulate the local populations, create propaganda and psychological warfare and all of these kinds of things. It was revealed in 1965. There was a whole lot of outroar, and it was shut down publicly, and an end to, intelligence agencies and anthropologists was like publicly announced, except of course that didn't happen. And all of this has continued in secrecy to this day. And after Project Camelot, another well-known project, the largest anthropological expenditure ever was the Human Terrain System. After 9/11, the US government again turned to anthropologists to wage war in Iraq. And they spent $700 million collaborating with anthropologists in order to create the Human Terrain System, where anthropologists would be paired with units, in war units, going actually into the field and interacting with the locals. And the idea was that the anthropologists could help determine who's friendly, who's not, and even potentially use, these are like old religious beefs, right? Anthropological knowledge is useful. And so that was the idea behind it, that they could kind of use those anthropologists and their knowledge to help increase the lethality of the military and increase their effectiveness over in Iraq. $700 million, largest anthropological spending ever, was in conjunction with the intelligence services. So, and after the Human Terrain System, a massive petition was started by the AAA. So previously, in 1919, the AAA took punitive measures and destroyed, what was that guy's name? Boaz, right? They destroyed Boaz's career because he had the balls to call this out and draw attention to it. But now in 2007, the AAA holds a vote on whether or not they should ban anthropologists working in secrecy, specifically doing in secret work, right? So there's open public work, and that's allowed, but then there is clandestine, off the books CIA agent work that is also being done constantly in the anthropological community, enough so that a petition was started. And of the 11,000 members of the AAA, 2,500 roughly decided to vote, to participate in the vote. Of those 2,500, 58% voted to ban the secret work of anthropologists with the CIA and other intelligence agencies, and 42% voted against it. The rest decided to abstain from voting. So, again, it's a problem that's already established enough, well-known enough, and is big enough that a vote is being held. And this vote is being held because archaeologists are, I don't know if this is still a problem, but it certainly was around the Cold War, and it certainly was around, the Iraq War. Anthropologists and archaeologists were just being denied entrance to countries. Like they would try and, their visas would just be blocked, right? because they had become synonymous with intelligence agencies. They had become synonymous with, doing clandestine work in foreign countries. And so this was affecting other anthropologists who weren't working with the CIA. They were no longer able to do their jobs. And it got to a point where they held a vote and they needed a 2/3 majority in order to ban it. So the vote did not go through. Granted, even if the vote did go through, that wasn't going to stop the secret work. But regardless, the vote did not go through. Thousands voted in favor of keeping the secret work. Thousands opted not to vote at all. So, this seems to be a pretty widespread problem, a whole lot of recruitment going on. By the way, in the 1980s, the CIA straight up took out advertisements in the AAA's newsletter recruiting anthropologists, just openly going, hey, you guys are who we want, right? So they are openly recruiting these guys in the 80s with advertisements in their own newsletters. Let's see, what else do I got here? Okay, so now that we've established that there is, in fact, a connection, why anthropologists? Why archaeologists and anthropologists? Well, it's both because as individuals, they are the perfect people to become CIA agents, and also because the work of anthropologists and archaeologists actually have massive implications that can completely unsettle the balance of the world. And that might sound like an exaggeration, but it's not. So archaeologists and anthropologists, one, like I was saying with the human terrain system, right? Like a lot of these problems in the Middle East specifically, they're very old religious beefs. And so understanding these things, it allows you to manipulate these things. You look at the CIA, who created ISIS, right? The CIA fights ISIS. They also created ISIS. And they do that by understanding these intricate problems. And who understands these? Anthropologists who study them. There's also the fact that anthropologists are already well-versed in secrecy. If you are an archaeologist, you don't get to tell people about your day-to-day work. When you are on a dig site, that dig site is secret. You can't let people know where you're working because looters will show up and loot it. So just your day-to-day is already secret work. Then there's all of the sensitivity of the information that you're working with. Not only is there things like race and IQ, right? But there's also issues like, look at Israel right now, the state of Israel, two groups of people fighting over who was there first and who truly owns that site. Well, who kind of dictates that information? The anthropologists and the archaeologists. It's not just for Israel either. You can apply this to the Uyghurs in China, right? You can apply this to America in Manifest Destiny. You can apply this all over the world. Ukraine, right? So the information that they're dealing with is actually quite sensitive, quite influential and impactful on the world. And they understand this. And so they are also well-versed in propaganda and manipulation of info because they study these things and they have to present them very carefully. This is a conversation that is, well established in the anthropological community. It's not one that you participate in and hear about yourselves. But if you're an anthropologist, this is like a big part of your life, is how you study this sensitive information and how you present it to the world, because you can't just present it straight out. You have to propagandize it and manipulate it and twist it. So already built into their career are like all of the elements that a CIA agent needs. What else are they doing? They're analyzing esoteric, secret, and coded information, right? They're decoding esoteric, secret, and coded information. That's a huge part of archaeology and anthropology. They are studying languages, specifically dead and secret languages. Again, kind of useful for CIA. So the individuals are, name me a single, I know it's not what people think of. When you first think of, all right, who does the CIA want to recruit from? You don't jump to archaeologists, but name me a profession that is better suited to be a CIA agent than an archaeologist. There isn't one. and you want to talk about secrecy specifically in America with NAGPRA, and I'm going to try and draw this connection. 2007, the HTS, that vote was held at a NAGPRA conference. So like the reason all of those thousands of AAA members were gathered for that vote wasn't actually for the vote on if they should work with the CIA. It was to discuss NAGPRA and how that was transforming. And now we have NAGPRA in 2024, where all American archaeological information is treated as classified information. It does not have the actual designation of classified, because that specifically applies to state secrets that are national security, and Indians aren't national security. But the processes and protocols and the way the information is handled is the exact same processes and protocols and way information is handled in the classified system. So they're already familiar with classified information. They deal with it on a daily basis. Again, they're the perfect recruitment pool. And then as I was talking about the Uyghurs, as I was talking about, Israel and Ukraine and America with Manifest Destiny, the information that is studied truly does have a massive impact on the world and how it operates. The information that is, publicized by anthropologists and archaeologists can massively shape and impact the world. So it's a match made in heaven, a match made in hell, however you want to look at it. You go back to, let's extrapolate this out a bit broader, right? And look a little bit more historically. So the place where the most bombs dropped ever is the Plain of Jars in Laos during the Vietnam War. This was not a military strategically location, and more bombs were dropped there than anywhere else ever in the history of ever, right? What was this? It was a field full of massive megalithic jars, not like the little jars in Egypt, in pre-dynastic Egypt. These are like 10-foot tall, huge stone jars. There were hundreds of them, potentially thousands of them. They all got blown up. Some of them survived, but largely they all got blown up. Why? Okay, World War II and World War I, specifically World War II, what were the targets in England? What were the targets in Germany? What got bombed the most? Was it military targets? Was it strategic military targets? No. Was it infrastructure? Was it critical infrastructure? No. Was it even civilians? It wasn't just mass casualty civilians. They specifically and deliberately targeted the architecture. The architecture was what was most targeted in World War II. You have in the Iraq War, right? What was the very first, I'm sure some of the people in the chat know this one, so I'll give you an opportunity to answer. What was the very first target in the Iraq War? What was the first thing raided? Before anything else happened, where did they go in Iraq? There were special teams that got sent into this location before anywhere else. I'm sure someone knows it. It was the museums. And then when ISIS took back control, what was the very first thing they did? They destroyed the Lamassus and all of these other archaeological sites. What is the first thing that any culture does when taking over any other culture? Is they erase their history. It's what's been done all throughout all of history. You look at South America with the Spanish taking over South America. Not only did they burn all of the books, they also built churches on top of all of the older sites. And now those churches are protected religious sites that are untouched, so you can't excavate underneath them because the church is now a historical site. This process of erasing history is essential to maintaining and controlling power for nations. It's the first and most important thing that they do every single time across every nation, across all of time, right? And so it makes perfect sense that archaeologists are one of the largest pools for recruitment for the CIA, and there is massive collaboration and cooperation between archaeologists and intelligence agencies. We talk about there being conspiracies to cover up history, and the biggest issue that people have with it is that it's just too big. It would require too many people to be involved. Certainly, there's not all of these archaeologists that are involved in this grand conspiracy. And I've discussed on this show how you actually don't need all of these archaeologists to be involved. You don't need any of them to be involved. But here I am going, hey, look, you probably do have a whole lot that are involved. And there's some counterintuitive points here, right? Many of you are probably familiar with the study where you take 5 people, 5 strangers, and you sit them in a room and you have the first 4 answer questions that are very obvious, like 2 + 2, and they answer them wrong. They go 2 + 2 = 5. The first 4 people all give the wrong answer. And the 5th person who's not in on this will 9 times out of 10 also give the wrong answer due to peer pressure, right? You would think that academics, people like archaeologists, they would be less susceptible to this. They're PhDs, they're intellectuals. They're not going to fall for some silly nonsense like that, except the reality is that they're far more susceptible to it because it's not 4 strangers in the room with them. It's 4 other PhDs, 4 people that they look up to, that they think are intelligent and couldn't possibly make silly little mistakes like that. So when you have 4 people going, sex isn't binary, or the first people in Sweden were actually black, or whatever nonsense they want to push, they shake their head and they go, oh, yes, of course, that must be right. And there's also far more of a social consequence for it, right? These people, they are PhDs, they have reputations, they have things to protect. Their funding gets cut if they make waves, right? Their careers end if they disagree. And so it's not just the social pressure of, oh, well, they're so smart. Obviously, they wouldn't say something so stupid. They must be right. It's also all of that social pressure. Hey, if you disagree, if you make waves, your funding gets cut, your reputation gets tarnished, et cetera, et cetera. So these people, it takes very few people to actually be in on some conspiracy to dictate what all of these other people are doing. And something I skipped, right, is the 1930s and 1940s. I went straight from 1919 to, World War II, basically. In the 1930s, 40s, and 50s, obviously there was a lot of commie gobbledygook bullshit going on, right? And that was centered in our universities. Our universities are corrupted and, they're controlled as well, right? But a lot of that commie shit was happening in universities. And where do you think the strongest concentration of that in universities was back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s? It was in the anthropology departments. I talked on Danny's show, Danny Polishchuk, highly recommend him. He's the reason this show exists. But I talked on there about NAGPRA and about how archaeology is quite literally the most far left-leaning institution of science, branch of science that we have, even beyond all of the other far left, leaning parts of our education system. Anthropology is number 1, and it was all the way back in the day then too. And so it was largely anthropologists who were actually the activists taking, things to the street, taking action, firebombing cars and stuff like that. It was largely anthropologists. And so the CIA was deeply invested in monitoring anthropologists throughout that time. And then in the same way that, they create ISIS and they fight ISIS, they create the hippies, they fight the hippies. I'm sure the same thing was going on there with anthropology as well. So it's all connected. I'm going to read through chat a little bit and then keep talking because, let me just read through chat a little bit. Let's check what you guys have been saying. Dude, the weather is terrible here. It has been awful. So much rain, so windy. I feel like I've been talking very fast this episode, but hey, Michael Galunas, I can't turn on live chat. I can only turn on half top chat, so I don't think I can see the message where you give the title, but if you can repost that, please. If you know that episode, share it. Am I familiar with 38 to 39 Reich expedition to Tibet by SS officer Ernst Schaefer took place in Tibet, who took extensive notes and appreciation of the Tibetans, heavily documented but erased? I am not familiar with that specifically, but Tibet is another area in which, and this is all over the world, but another area in which anthropology and archaeology is very, very sensitive, and information coming out of there could really, really upset things because of if you're familiar with that whole situation there. And this is pretty much true find me a part of the world where that's not true. Like it's universal. But yeah, what do you guys think about archaeologists and intelligence agencies and the idea that, you have NAGPRA, where I don't think these things are all coincidental. There very clearly is a hiding of history. There is obviously a cover-up of history, and people go, it's too big, it's too big. But here we have massive collaboration between the CIA and archaeologists. I don't think it's too big. Even without that collaboration, I don't think it's too big. I've explained thoroughly, and maybe I'll do that again this episode, how such a massive conspiracy could operate without, numerous players being involved. I think I will. I'm going to finish reading through chat, and then I'll do that. Doesn't seem like you guys are talking about fruits and vegetables. Okay. Yeah. All right. So the idea of how could a massive global cover-up of history be occurring in archaeology without, everyone being involved? So I've used the analogy of monkeys in a room. You put 10 monkeys in a room, and you put a rope in the middle of the room with bananas at the top of it. A monkey's going to try and climb the rope to get to the bananas. But if a water hose pops out of the wall, blasts the monkey off violently, maybe another monkey tries to climb, he gets blasted off. Maybe that happens 2 or 3 times. Very quickly, the monkeys learn not to climb the rope. Now take one of those monkeys out and replace it with a new monkey who knows nothing about the water hose. It's going to try and climb the rope, but the other monkeys will stop it. They will pull it down off the rope before it gets blasted, and it'll eventually give up on climbing the rope. One by one, replace all of the monkeys in the room till eventually none of the monkeys have any knowledge of the water hose. And you can keep replacing these monkeys one by one ad infinitum, and they will continue pulling each other down and preventing each other from climbing the rope, because that's what the monkey before them did. They don't even know why they're doing it, but it's what everyone else did, so that's what they do. And that's the exact same way that these, conspiracies operate. In principle, and combine that with what I was just saying about how, these are PhDs. So when they say something really stupid, but they insist that you're the stupid one, like, 2 + 2 = 5, it has a pretty powerful effect. And you very quickly learn to not question that 2 + 2 = 5. And, again, all of the social consequences, you lose your funding, you lose your reputation, all of that happens very, very quickly. And so it becomes this self-policing system. If anyone does, there's these topics that it's not written down anywhere, hey, this is what you don't talk about, but everyone knows these are the things you don't talk about. There's so many forbidden topics in archaeology, like the idea of pre-Columbian travel to the Americas, the idea of giants, the idea of, so many things are just untouchable. So if you ever do find something that contradicts this, you either bury it yourself, or you know that all of your colleagues are immediately going to distance themselves from you. They're going to slander you. Your career's going to be over, and you're going to lose your funding. You're going to lose your reputation. And if it gets bad enough, the media will come after you and slander you as well. You saw that happen with Gunung Padang. Initially, Gunung Padang had the full support of is it Indonesia? I don't think that's the right country, but wherever Gunung Padang is located, the president, he had the full support. The president was like, all resources that you need, because again, anthropological and archaeological data can be very important. So the president, who is not involved in these circles, doesn't know the untouchable topics, right? He's a normal guy, despite being a president. He's normal in that he's not part of these anthropological circles. And so when he learns that there's this pyramid that is maybe 25,000+ years old, he goes, holy crap, this could change everything for our country. We could have the oldest human-made structure by miles. This would be huge. So he goes, any resource you need, whatever you want, it's yours. Do the excavations, uncover this, do the research, And then the WEF sends over a young global initiative person, and they have a little conversation with the president, and he does a full 180, and he goes, "We will not be doing any excavations. You will not be investigating this whatsoever. All investigations are shut down and put on hold." This is how it operates. So you have the self-policing that takes care of 99% of it. You don't even need to have anyone directly involved. They just do it themselves. And God forbid anyone steps out of line and they actually push forward anyways, fuck the consequences. Then you have the media step in and the media just slanders them. And God forbid that's not enough. You get some goons from the WEF or whoever, and you actually do exert direct pressure and you get them to change what they're doing and you shut it the fuck down. There is a global conspiracy to control history. It's not only is it possible, it's obvious, and it's like essential. Control the past, control the future. It would be insane. You think about all of the lengths that, look at the America government and the lengths that it goes to, the way that it plays, with other countries' fates and stuff. And you don't think that they're going to try and control the narrative of history, one of the most powerful narratives in the world? Come on, fellas. I'm going to open up the phone lines. Call in and share your schizo thoughts with me. Yes, a lot of gaslighting, and that's the thing, is it is massive gaslighting from intellectuals. That's all it is. And they gaslight themselves and each other as well. That's the whole thing, man. That's the whole thing. I understand this really well. I see it really clearly. I think I did a decent job presenting it. I'm never too sure. Hopefully the message is clear. But I don't think it was an actual experiment. I don't think it was ever actually done. But it's how it would work. But yeah, if anyone wants to call in. Let me know what you think. I might talk a little bit about the aliens, the Nazca mummies, because that relates to this, right? That relates to Nagpra. I connect it. Everything in my head is connected. I see. That's how my brain works, is through connections. It's hard to express those to you guys sometimes, but I see connections everywhere. Gulag. Welcome, Gulag. Thank you.
Hey, wanted to make the point that other than archaeology and anthropology, maybe the one field that's most infested by intelligence agents is probably journalism.
Yeah, they definitely control all of it. I would say that that's for a different purpose, right? So they control them because they need to control the journalism. Whereas archaeologists actually make good agents. They have all of the qualities that make them a good agent. But yeah, no, very valid point. Yes, you're correct.
Recently, we had these revelations from Doge, where they uncovered these secret USA contracts. Reuters was getting millions of dollars for. I think they framed it I think they were very clear, in the title of the contract, it was for mass deception or something like that. I don't know how closely you have followed the revelations there. It's been all over Twitter recently.
Yeah, I mean, I've been somewhat following it, and even if it's not titled mass deception, there have been several programs that obviously are, you've got the propaganda programs of it's like, let's promote LGBTQ in Tibet and shit like that, that's obviously propaganda and deception.
Just promoting.
And also the USAID thing also does connect to what I'm talking about with archaeologists and anthropologists. Money is going to them as well.
For sure, you need to bribe people.
Yeah.
But for archaeology, do you believe that there have been finds in archaeology about aliens or alien technology in archaeological sites that has been covered up by the intelligence agencies?
Well, I think it's a very strong possibility. I don't have any proof of that happening for sure. It wouldn't surprise me at all. I will say that with the Nazca, mummies, those aliens, right? There's these elongated heads all around the world, and there is head binding. That is a real thing, and that's also a very widespread thing. One might ask why it's such a common and widespread thing. But then there also does seem to be this other category of skull that does look larger. And if you research this, you get all kinds of contradictory information. There are some studies that were done. None of them really seem to be done well. But yeah, you can just visually look at these. I mean, you can see two skulls next to each other, and one is obviously significantly larger, right? And it just looks different. The features look different, especially the eyes. And so I think there's quite possibly something there. It's obvious that that's getting covered up and suppressed. You have Brian Forrester, who did DNA research into some of these skulls, and it's like, why is he, an amateur, the first person looking into these skulls in that way, or at least publicly releasing the information of it being looked into that way? Because I'm sure it has been. And so, yeah, I think those, I don't know if they're alien in the sense that they're extraterrestrial, but there does seem to be something distinct from the humans that you and I are out there. And it does seem that there's pretty massive obfuscation campaigns against those skulls.
Yeah. We all know about these different parts of Egypt, and in the pyramids, different compartments that have not been explored. And it's like they find some tantalizing clue about something new that could be dug up really quickly, or even just they could drill and put a camera in there. But they don't, and people forget about it, and it takes decades before anyone does any research into this. Like, we know this second Grand Gallery in the Great Pyramid. Like,
they say they don't explore them. They say
yes.
they don't explore them. They say they don't exist. I've talked about this before on the show. Zahi Hawass, the no chambers in the Sphinx, no chambers below the Sphinx. All of these claims that he's made, and then he goes, they don't exist, there's nothing there. And then footage of him, not released by him, but photos of him entering and exiting these chambers in between the Sphinx paws, inside of the Sphinx. And now some of these chambers they're publicly acknowledged, right? There's multiple chambers in the Sphinx that are publicly acknowledged now, but go back a few decades, and Zahi was insisting that they didn't exist, and was insisting that, obviously no one had been in there, because he's saying they didn't exist. And then it's revealed that he himself has been in there while he's saying they don't exist. So yeah, they say they haven't explored them. They say all of this stuff. They absolutely are exploring them. They're just not revealing that. And they've been caught doing this multiple times.
Maybe the reason for this is that they once a long time ago found something alien in one of these places, and they don't want to explore new places publicly, because they might find something other alien in there as well.
I don't know if it necessarily has to be alien, although it certainly could be. I think there's a lot of possibilities that they could find. It could just be human technology, or it doesn't even necessarily have to be technology. It could just be something that would change our entire perspective of our past. But yeah, alien technology, just human information, human technology, any of those things. I mean, imagine, there's the highly contentious Chinese pyramids and who's actually inside of them, right? Yeah. Like, if it was the Uyghurs, the white Uyghurs, that built those pyramids instead of the Chinese, like, that would be massively upsetting. So it doesn't even have to be something like aliens to be something worth keeping secret.
Yeah, for sure. It could be that as well.
Yeah. Do you have anything else you wanted to talk about? Mike G's waiting to.
Oh, okay.
No, you're fine.
Let's let Mike up. I don't have much else to say tonight.
Yeah, let me add him while you're still here. See, maybe he had something to say to you. What's up, Mike?
Oh, howdy, guys. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Oh, word. Yeah. So I'm a little technologically deficient here. I can't coming in and out of the room, couldn't figure it out, but we got it under control. So I missed part of what he was saying. You know what I
And
mean?
feel free to dip if you want to, Gulag. I didn't mean to put you in a weird spot there where I just like held you after your time, but whatever you guys want to do. So you missed part of that, Mike.
Go ahead, sir. Oh yeah,
Go ahead,
I was just gonna say, like the whole thing about the spooks being in all this stuff, like they're everywhere in this world these days. I was just like watching some knife guy on YouTube, you know what I mean? And the guy's like, so he's ex-army, whatever, but like he was, saying how they're everywhere and how like it was right around that time where that Tesla truck thing happened, right? And that guy was going to go on the show, right? Remember, he was supposed to go on, what's that one dude show, Sean Ryan or something, right? Okay. And then all of a sudden, like the Sean Ryan guy, he's one of those astroturfed people, right? Like all of a sudden, he's got a gajillion reporter or subscribers, he's being recommended and whatnot. You know what I mean? It's like it's all over there, but it's weird in the worlds that they're in. They're like in the little knife maker ones and all like what was the other one? A bunch of those outdoors ones, like the survivalist type people. Well, that would make sense, I guess. But, they just have their hands in everything. And a while back, I don't know if anybody heard of this. It was a clip saying, an article saying that, there would be household names of people you would recognize and that they were being paid by, the government to basically propagandize us. And they said it flat out. It was Operation Signal Reduction or something like that. I think there was a Operation Signal Reduction. You ever heard of
that? No. I will be right back, though. I got to let my dog out. Sorry, give me 30 seconds.
Now we know. Everybody mark this down. We know who let the dogs out. It was, in fact, Goob. Right? That thing's been going forever. Now we know.
I think the song about letting the dogs out is about something other than actual dogs.
Get out of town. I've been looking for that guy my whole life. You know what I mean? And I just thought I found him, and now you're telling me it was an allegory.
I let the dogs out.
Damn it!
But yeah, no, I haven't heard of them, but that doesn't surprise me. I mean, I like Danny Polishchuk. He's my favorite comedian. It's surprising how much crossover between like the Boys Cast and Low Value Mail happens with this show. But they've talked about how in comedy, like there's very obviously people who are, like you're saying, astroturfed. It's just like they show up out of nowhere. All of a sudden they've got, they're getting booked on all these shows and everything. And it's like really, really obvious that they have backing from the CIA or something. And right. Yeah, it is interesting how they have their hands in just everything.
Everything. And it's just like, around the corner, I always just, there's one of them, you know what I mean? I just wonder, like, my thing is just like, I don't know. I just like to, what am I trying to say? Like, meet some of these people, just curious, like, or let me rephrase it. It's more like this. You don't even need to be on the payroll anymore to be being influenced by them and being used by them, right? Like the way, especially what YouTube works, you get enough subscribers, you get super chats, people start super chatting you when you say something they like, right? Then all of a sudden it now nudges your behavior. There's all this behavioral nudging going on. And I guess kind of ties into what you were saying there, right?
And you remember Destiny and the bots in his chat?
That was messed up. Yeah, right.
So exactly. Now you don't even need real people to do it. You sick some bots on someone.
Right. And now, like you were saying, well, obviously the control of information is right. If China found out there was redheaded white people there building pyramids, right, it would blow their marble. And things would be problematic. And of course, we all know that in the new world, it's Clovis first. And if not, we run you out of town, right? So, right. And honestly, that, the idea that these people have this thing like, oh, scientists can't do it. Like, are you kidding me? They're conditioned to do that by their whole needing to conform to the consensus, especially in the way that the funding and everything works. And
Yes,
the
that's
funding's
that. And I don't know if I made that point well enough, but I tried to make that point in this episode that yes, the instinct would be to assume that they're less susceptible to these things, but it's actually the exact opposite. They are so much
Right.
more susceptible because of, yes,
Right.
all
There
of
are
those
hard guardrails that we don't talk about, like you said,
Right.
you know, and then great, now I forgot it.
My bad.
That's all right. I forget often. The thing about it, the spooks was, right. So another thing, right? The Jeffrey Epstein thing, part of that, you know, you think about it is, what was what's her name's dad's job? Remember, his girlfriend?
Ghislaine Maxwell. Yeah,
Yeah, right.
he was Netflix. Is that what it was?
I think it was the journals
In
that are
propaganda,
in.
obviously.
Yeah, right. The journals that are in colleges, right? All the colleges have to write, you know, every doctorate has to write a journal, right? And get published. Those published magazines, like he went and bought them and then bought most of them, I think, and then sold the subscription packages to all the schools.
Right. That's yes, he's responsible for the broken scientific publishing system. You're right. Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
Right. And that's a huge arm of control of that whole thing, and then consequentially to the way we think.
Yes.
You know?
There's a video I recommended a long time ago from, I'm gonna see if I can pull it up again, because he goes into that like really in depth. And how do I even see my subscriptions here? It was the sorry, I'm looking for the channel on my subscription page.
Good luck. That's a shitty pay, that tab.
Yes, there's more here than I remember there being.
Right. I don't. Why don't they alphabetize it like so you could skip A to B? No, you got to go through every last A.
So it's Formscapes, and he's got a video on exactly that. Let's see if I can quickly find the video title. So how science became unscientific. It's a 2-hour video where, I mean, but within like the first 30 seconds, he's naming Ghislaine Maxwell's dad and just like hitting you with rapid fire fact after rapid fire fact. Right. So if you want to understand that better, it's the best breakdown of that I've seen. And yeah, it really is atrocious how broken the system is and how corrupted the system is and how it was all designed that way.
Right. And there's very few, you know, it's the idea of a few points of pressure, right? It doesn't, like you were saying about the conspiracy, not only are most people retarded and you know, this is the thing about they have to tard. It's what they do. And perhaps you're one if you think that is what they don't do. Do you know what I mean? Yep. So like, most people are that, and most people can't think for themselves. People sometimes will be like, "Oh, you always speak your mind." I can't stop myself. I wish I could. I wish I could be one of those retards that said 5 when everybody else said 5 when it's clearly 4. Do you know what I mean? But it's not a virtue.
4 green lights, you bastard.
Right. It's not a virtue. It's an inability to control myself. Trust me.
Yeah. But no, I have it as well.
Yeah. So it's just like, you know, you take that and couple it with people who know where to apply the pressure as well, and you know, you get what we have now basically. And I'm kind of black-pilled about it ending because of that fact, you know, like it takes a lot. Although I do, you know, I guess the thing that gives me hope is that it's a small percentage that it takes to sway everything. You know what I mean? Only a couple right.
Yeah, and you know, with Doge and everything else, like, and I mean, hell, if like funding gets cut off, and God forbid they actually dismantle the CIA, it's like we could have major changes. I've also talked about how amateurs are, you know, taking up the burden that archaeology has left behind, and I am not going to get into details, but 2025 is looking very, very promising.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so
So
the amateur thing though, right? That would still come down to the Rees, right? Like they need to be able to tell what is real with their own eyes and believe their own lion eyes every now and again, right? Like, so unless you get enough of social conditioning around it where people look around and they go, "Oh, that's what we do," and then everybody does that. You know what I mean? It's kind of like
it's the acceleration of the amateur archaeologist is so much faster than I ever dreamed possible.
right.
So yeah, there is already a culture shift
Well,
happening, and if
right.
the pace maintains, like 2025 is going to be a real good year.
That's cool. Because like again, what got me going on this was I was like, I'm 48, dude, and I lived in New York my whole life, and then all of a sudden I find out we have all of these stone walls everywhere for miles, and then we had those crazy chambers, and then I find out about all those huge, huge mounds that go from the mouth of the Mississippi all the way up to Canada, and they're huge, and the oldest ones are in the south east, the complete wrong side for everything. You know what I mean? And then they go all the way up there, all the way. There's a couple in New York. I mean, it's huge. They go all through all the navigable rivers
Yeah.
up that way. You know what I mean? And I'm just finding out about this now. And I used to like that was the one class in school I paid attention in. You know what I mean? Was history.
Not
And just
me, but I
yeah, yeah.
only
Well,
I only learned history as an adult. Do you know Gregory Little, Dr. Gregory Edward Little on Twitter?
I don't do the
Okay.
Twitter.
Well, you might follow him on there or just check out
Okay.
his posts sometimes if you don't want to make an account. But he posts all day, every day about mounds and artifacts found in them.
Yeah. Oh, word. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, because those are the ones in Ohio's where they found those like that big piece of if you it's there's a few common images you'll see all the time, and there's this big like claw that's made out of mica, and then there's a big like bird made out of mica too that they came from like you know hundreds of miles away at the very least, and then it's the one with some of the copper stuff in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And he posts
Right.
stuff like that again all day, every day.
Yeah.
So it's a
Word.
great account.
Yeah.
Dr. Edward Gregory Little.
All right, I'll check it out, dude. Awesome, man. All right, man.
Yeah.
Good talking to you.
You too, man.
All right, later, dude. Bye.
Later. Gulag, you got anything to add here?
Well, I was hoping we get someone else as well, so we got like 4 people talking. It would be kind of cool. But
Well, here we have Slav. We'll see if his mic's working this week. I just added him to the stage. So, Slav, I'm going to unmute you.
hello, Slav.
Or you got it yourself.
You got
I
me?
don't hear horrible noises, so. Might have spoke too soon. What's up, Slav?
Hey, y'all hear me better now?
Yeah, beautiful bird sounds in the background. It's lovely.
Yeah, I'm along the Colorado River because I live in Faxton. So yeah. You were talking about how archaeologists use that title as a cover for clandestine operations.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, all this stuff goes back to the original Jesuits when the Catholic Church was, sending people out to explore lands. And I think one of their first stop. I mean, I heard all this from War Mode, and then I started reading into it. But it was when they went into the East Indies, not the West Indies, and all the missionaries would be sent out with like Jesuit handlers. But the Jesuit handlers are basically just there to like take notes down about, oh, these are how these people. Well, they didn't call them people; they called them endejos. Same way the conquistadors did. People that aren't of God, but they are of God's creatures, creation.
And like I mentioned, the conquistadors built churches on all of the older, ruins already to cover it up. Yeah, they do that all around the world.
Yeah. I was one of the most famous ones is Obama's mother. She was some sort of archaeologist. She was an archaeologist, but she was there was some sort of like
girl.
There was some sort of adjective before her title of some sort of historical archaeologist or something, but it was basically they all did the same thing where they're like, oh no, we're here to do all this. It's like the same thing with the Peace Corps and USA Aid, where all these things were created by JFK, but they were overtaken by deep state forces or
Well, I feel like the USAID thing was set up in order to do those things, right? To launder the money and to keep. I mean, somebody's got to pay the people to be the terrorists. You can't just have that directly come back to the United States government. It's got to be washed through a couple intermediaries.
Right. Well, that's why the CIA is so heavily involved in drug trade and human trafficking, is they make money on those things to then fund their further illicit activities where they're toppling nation states.
Right.
I just looked it up, and Obama's mother worked for USAID.
They're on one of the Telegram channels for History Homos, which I'm still trying to get you in contact with. They're like, okay, these can't be Obama's mother's nudes. Like they showed like late 50s, early 60s white lady nudes that are bad.
Oh, I heard about that.
With the beer bottle?
That's right.
Yeah, no, the first round that came out, they had the little black bars over the private parts and bits and all that. But just use your imagination or whatever. But
that's right.
Yeah, no, I mean, dude, I've always been saying he's been a farce. I mean, dude, what is it? What you call Chris from Brooklyn from Hot Society Radio. He's always gone off on about how Obama's biography or autobiography was a fucking lie about how he showed up to New York and had to sleep outside on a stoop instead of
it's always a rags to riches story, and they done it on their own too. If you notice, you go back through, that was one of the things I'll notice about like the early robber barons, right? They came over this country, they were penniless, they did it all on their own, they built this huge fortune. Like, insert name, story's the same every time.
It is always that. It's just, I mean, most people who are rags to riches, it is people who are like, because if you look at the first wave of like actual migration to America during like the mid 1800s to the basically early 1900s, I forgot who was saying it, but they're explaining it as all these people came knowing that like I'm not being given anything, but I can earn something way more than I can earn back home. That's why they all came here.
Yeah,
and
that's
then
the era
all
my
the
family
ones
came here, right?
Yeah, and then all the ones, and that's literally how my family came here, and that was in the 90s and in the year 2000. Now all the ones coming here now, coming in like locusts, they're like, yeah, we're coming in here because we're given handouts,
right?
But what is it? Dang, I was looking at the other. Oh yeah, what is it? Baghdad. Yeah, they struck all that stuff in Baghdad. And that's where Bechtel, if you know Bechtel Group, they're the ones who built all the green zones in Kabul,
right?
In Baghdad. I mean, all this. Let's see, in a bullet, welcome aboard, brother. Yeah, that's what you're saying. It's like we're getting at a point where it's like you guys can't even just. It's gotten to the point. Like I hope it gets getting pushed to the point where it's like, well, you're not wrong, but what you're saying is hurtful. And it's like, well, we're going to keep pushing it until you realize, you correct yourselves.
I don't know exactly where you're going with this, Slav, but
well, I mean, with the erasure of history and everything. I mean, for instance, if you look at Afghanistan and all that stuff, like how they had
the museum was the first place that was raided during the war, and then ISIS immediately targets all of the archaeological sites when they regain power. And yeah.
Oh yeah, so with ISIS is one of the news sources that I listen to. Like I don't watch TV for news. I get it from like Robbie Bernstein's Run Your Mouth, or I get it from Drinking Bros, who are here in Austin. And one of their hosts, he was 82nd Airborne, and he was like, "Yeah, we had to train guys who were under the label of Sons of Iraq, who eventually just became, ISIS, ISIL, yeah,
Right.
whatever you want to call it." Yeah, it's just like a same old whole rollover. And then if you start, I've seen a bunch of like quote unquote suggested reels where it's Adam Curry talking about the Afghanistan war and everything that led up to it. And it's like, yeah, it is more of a like just an involvement of like dude, I've always wanted to visit the Middle East, especially like when I was a little kid. I knew, like, even before the invasion of Iraq, I knew about Baghdad and all the history of, the Euphrates Valley and all that stuff, even as like a second grader. I don't know why, but I just knew it. And I was like, dude, I want to go there. And I saw that shit happen live on TV where they, airstrike the shit out of it in October 2003. I'm like, oh, fuck, I'm never going to get to go visit that shit. And then 2010, I think. Yeah, my father, he got to go on a photojournalist thing to Damascus. And this was before that phony ass, what's it called, Arab Spring. Dude, that shit was fucking beautiful. It's like thousand-year old, city built. And they got American Cadillacs thrown around. I'm like, yeah, that's pretty cool. And they're selling beers, and they got, chicks both in and not in hijabs. Cool.
And all of those are getting destroyed. Anything that still exists like that is definitely a target for destruction.
Dude, he got to go visit Aleppo. He got to go take pictures of Aleppo. I'm going to have to, I'll have to go back to, the 2000th last page of my emails to see the pictures that he emailed me. And I'm like, dude, that is fucking awesome, man. Lo and behold,
I always wonder why did we start messing around in the Middle East? Is it because we ran out of South American Nazis?
No. It's because of what is it? The English and the people who control the English Parliament, who are the Zionist lobby. I mean, why do you think Churchill told, what is it? No, we can't accept boats of Jews. And then he told FDR while the boat was crossing the Atlantic saying, no, you can't accept them. And then they had to be like, okay, fine, we'll go to Brazil. And then Brazil somehow got told, no, you can't accept them. And then that same boat ended up right back into, Habsburg or whatever their port city is in Germany. I forgot. I mean, the whole thing was just like, it really is like a whole of, we know they're going to all suffer. So this is really I don't know if this is like a 4chan post or some shit, but they're always saying like the whole identity of Jew since like the last like 300 years has been like make ourselves look like the victim. It's like a battered wife who gets beat at home, but she keeps that home there and the man in the home, and then she gets her points because all of her friends outside of the home see that she's got like a bruised eye, right?
Right.
That's why you have the burqa.
No, it's basically been like that the whole time. I mean, and now I'm at the point, it's like, okay, dude, it's been enough time. It's like nobody can. I've said this on Danny's show. It's like you can't complain about anti-Semitism when, an entire nation was invented as a refuge to escape whatever they call anti-Semitism or anti-whateverism.
And imagine how much that whole situation could be upset with some carefully placed and propagandized archaeological and anthropological information. You put out a couple studies and you go, hey, look at these were the people that have always been here. You can actually influence major world political events through that kind of information. So,
I mean, even before all the suggested sites, because what is it? VE Day happened, and then they started all those processes in after May 7th, 1945. And they're like, okay, well, here you got like 10 different spots you could choose from where you want to set up Israel. You know, it was literally almost like every continent, and then including Madagascar. And they're like, no, let's just choose the worst neighborhood ever.
Yeah.
And which has been like historically, I mean, the Levant. I'm gonna just keep calling it the Levant. I don't care about calling it the Middle East or Arabia or wherever the fuck. The Levant.
Kind of makes more sense, honestly.
Yeah, and then when you start reading about like, oh wait, there were Jews in Iraq, there were Jews in Afghanistan, there were Jews in Persia and all that, and then when you start to read about them, it's like, oh wait, they had like their own set up, you know, societies where they knew how to interact with each other, and they're like, you can come here, you can't come there, we'll do business with you, you can, you know, just exist, you know, as a social person. We know your tendencies, we know your practices. You ain't pulling one over on us. But again, it is that whole like little meme where they show you like the whole map of it's like a blank map that goes from Egypt, Syria, all the way to Afghanistan. They're like, draw your own borders, see what will happen. And that's what they did. And you could go on throughout, and then talk about how, you know, Likud Party really was created by terrorists, King David Hotel,
Right,
blah, blah,
right.
blah, 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 blah. And then my whole thing is, I'm like, we can't have a greatest ally when they can't, when they don't deny or confirm they have nukes, which is their whole policy. And then their whole thing of, we'll send this Philly Delco dickhead, Ben Yarazano, Benji, and he's like, no, we need to, I implore Americans, go invade Iraq in 2002. And they're like, okay, what other nations? He mentions all the other nations listed by Westland.
All right.
And
So
then they never
finally.
send
I was wondering where Slav was meandering there for quite a while, but we finally made it back to blaming the Jews.
But
So
it is. But so what my thing is, watch out in the next few weeks.
Let's bring this back to history.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've let you ramble on for a really long time, and you finally did get back to blaming the Jews, which I feel like was your intention the whole time. But I want to get back to talking about history.
I'll just leave it off on this. So in 2002, Netanyahu went before a congressional committee, asked them, he implored them. He didn't ask, he implored, you guys got to go into Iraq for so-called weapons of mass destruction. They've never sent, no IDF has ever been active in the so-called GWOT, Greater War on Terrorism, right? They never did that. They're going to do it again. They're going to do it again. And if you guys have nieces or nieces,
all right,
let's just say this goes viral.
So wait, I muted the wrong mic. There we go. There's Slav.
Let's try not to get the Goop banned on YouTube.
Yeah, I mean,
that's true.
I don't even mind your rants. They just don't have anything to do with what we're talking about, really. They're very long.
Oh man.
But all right, yeah, a little history lesson there, I guess. Yeah, Rue, that is Slav, and Slav is always Slav. You can also follow Slav on the Low Value Mail. He's great there as well. Everyone loves Slav, but he is a bit much sometimes.
Why don't you start your own channel, dog?
I got rent to pay, dog.
Well, come on, you show up. I'm here enough. All you need is a phone.
You do like to call into podcasts a lot.
I mean,
I'd watch.
I don't. Anybody I've ever worked alongside with, I'm like, bro, I just like Leonard Skinner. What do you like? That's like that's it. Like, bro, I am very much FUD retard. Not entirely goy slop, but I'm like, don't even fucking press me on geopolitics because,
Uh,
like, I've been reading history since I learned
we're good,
English.
Slav. We're good. We don't need you to start another rant. So,
All right.
so taking it back to what we were talking about, there were a couple little details I left out, just a couple other fun facts. So the Anthropologists for Justice and Peace, they have a long history of criticizing archaeology and its connection to the CIA. So like that's like one of their main causes is like trying to stop archaeologists working with the CIA. So that it's a well-established enough connection that you've got a whole group dedicated to it. And then the Society for Applied Archaeology is another archaeological group, but they are very pro archaeology and CIA and archaeologists working as spies, and they actively promote why that's a good thing. So entire groups for
Why
these.
do they say it's a good thing?
What's that?
Why do they say it's a good thing?
I basically it allows us to be more effective in war. You understand the foreign culture and you can be more accurate with your lethality and more lethal with your lethality. That's basically
Gotcha.
the arguments. Robert A. Rubenstein, Slav, is a vocal archaeologist promoting working with the CIA. And he's a Steen, so you can imagine why he might promote that. Jack Harris is a well-known archaeologist and CIA spy, and I think I included everything else in my talk earlier. But yeah, any comments on history-related things or CIA and spy-related things? If not,
Oh wait, what is it? I did mention. This is the comment I forgot that I posted. In 1938 and 1939, there was a expedition by Nazi archaeologists to Tibet.
Is this with Agartha?
Hold on, let me see. I had the name right here.
I mean, is this where does this have anything to do with finding Agartha, the legendary, heavenly city, or is that a separate issue?
I think, it does fall into that whole fold of like all these. What is that mystical city that they talk about?
I believe Tibet is Agartha, if I'm remembering correctly.
Shambhala, or there's like this other one that's all the way. They say it's like at the top of China. It's what is it? Nazis sent an expedition 1938 to 1939 by Ernst Schaefer, and it's the A with the double dots on top. And the Soviets also did the same thing. There was like a whole archaeological race during the 20s and 30s, like during the interwar period, when a lot of people who basically made it out on top financially, where they weren't encumbered, they were able to run around, especially like in the Pacifics and the subcontinent. It's that, and a lot of when I try and look up all this stuff, it's not the same thing I read about when I was a little kid. Like, I read about these stuff in books when I was like
the information has changed. And if you want accurate information, I recommend going back to those older sources.
Yeah, those older sources are gone. Those libraries have been demolished and rebuilt and look like dumb glass steel cages instead of,
A lot of it does still exist. You can still find a lot of it, but it's going to take some effort, and it is disappearing. It is being destroyed.
I'm telling you what, like, I go to like thrift shops and shit like that all the time, and I'll tell you how many times I see somebody who got a whole library closed out of books, CDs, and records all the time. You know what I mean? And they'll sell those older edition books cheap because, it's just a book to them. They want to blow it out of there. You know what I mean? So but like Goop said, it's going to take work. You got to pound the pavement to find it.
And now with NAGPRA, you actually have federal laws put into place that make these things illegal. Now, specifically, NAGPRA's Native American information, but that is a whole category of historical book that they still exist, but not only will they continue disappearing, they're actually technically illegal now. So they're really going to disappear. And that's the trend across the board.
I mean, my best bet is like I still have a University of Houston ID where I was a student, and we have a massive, massive basement in the library with microfiches
Yeah, right.
and what is it when I had to do some geology papers. I had to pull out geology documents that were like I had to literally go to the desk and be like, hey, I find it and I'm like, yeah, you need to go to the desk, go grab that. And I'm like, okay, guys, just give me like a few hours. And they're like, fine. And I just sit down there, just munching Adderalls and pounding coffee. And
you're not allowed to take them out of there. You're only
no,
allowed.
I'm not allowed. I'm not allowed to do that. And then what is it? Sometimes it was like very late at night. And, you know, they used to have 24/7 hours, and the librarians knew who I was. So I was like, hey, I just want to step outside to like smoke a cigarette or two, because I am hopped up on speed, and you know that
Goes hand in hand.
Dude, it's fucking amazing.
When
But
I called the Ohio History Connection and I was asking them, I was like, I would like to study Native Americans, what resources, you know, and they're like, yeah, if you want to do that, you can come in person and you can look at what we have in person, and that's the only way you can do it. You can't take anything out. You can look at it here.
yeah, just buy one of those what is it, chest GoPros, shove it into your shove it underneath one of the button-up shirts, and just honestly, dude, acting autistic as fuck.
But they had totally restricted all of the information they had, though.
Yeah, but no, honestly, acting autistic as fuck makes people be like, okay, I'm gonna just leave this retard alone.
It's kind of true.
It is incredibly true.
I mean, I don't do it as it's not an act, but I've noticed that happens for me.
I mean, hey,
I had a genital injury and had to take a flight, and so I didn't remove my hand from my pants the entire time I was in the airport or anything, because I was like trying to prevent. It was like I couldn't even let fabric touch, you know. And not a single person said anything to me. I walked through 2 airports and a plane and everywhere just with my hand clearly down my pants. Not a single word said to me.
I called into Danny's show about my genital injury once, man.
What, did y'all guys like jerk off till y'all got blisters?
No.
No.
I woke up with my right ball was like the size of an orange.
Oh,
maybe
Jesus
a softball.
Christ.
Yeah. It had like when it got taken out, the liquid got taken out. It was like 12 ounces of fluid, and it's called a hydrocele. Like apparently there's this little. Yeah, there's this little sac around your ball, right around your ball, in between your ball, a real ball sac, and it's supposed to sweat liquid in and out. And it usually happens only to little babies. But yeah, you know, one day I just woke up and my nut was huge, dude. It sucked. I had to have that thing carry it around with me for like 6 months before they could get rid of it.
Oh shit.
Dude, it was brutal, dude.
Oh
brutal.
Shit! I was not expecting you to say 6 months.
Yeah. It might have been 4, but it was like 4 to 6 months. It happened in the summer, and it was like the first week of December. I was in my 30s.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
Yeah, dude, it could happen, and it just all of a sudden, like I said, I woke up that morning, my ball just was huge, and I was like, "What is going on?"
Well, at least it was your 30s and not an age when, you know.
Yeah, right.
You're still living at home with your parents, and you got to be like,
"Mom, look at this."
Dad,
yeah, right.
What's wrong?
Oh man, it was a nightmare though. So. It didn't hurt. It just was like awkward. So when you said, you know, I often would carry my ball with me. You know what I mean? Instead of letting it hang, dude. Imagine all that. You know, what is that? 16 ounces or 14 ounces weighs 12 ounces. I mean, it weighs a lot.
Anyway. I mean, it is a lot easier for us dudes because it's like you just need 2 things to know that like you're still functioning. It's like you wake up hard, or like you wake up and then you're hard within like a few minutes because maybe you've been drinking the night before and you're just
Talking about
got to slow. Or
crossover with Danny
or
Polish. You're measuring your morning erections.
or what is it? Basically, it's like if it's like warm weather, it's like you could still see your balls moving up and down. Yeah, that's basic. That's basic bit biology, man. Like we ain't different.
All right.
Oh,
Well, fellas, it has been fun. I
has
feel
been.
like now that we're just talking about balls, we have reached the end of the episode. So thank you for calling in, fellas. I do
Oh, man.
appreciate
All right.
it.
Y'all
Fun
enjoy
time.
y'all weekend.
You
Yeah.
too. All right, later, folks.
Peace
Later.
out.